Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
When you look at the global landscape today, it is incredibly easy to get swept up in the alarmism of flashing red lights.
Oh, absolutely. The headlines are designed to do exactly that.
Right. But today, we are stripping away the panic. We're keeping things calm and professional, delivering the facts on current events.
Yeah, we are looking strictly at the structural realities beneath the surface because, when you analyze the verifiable data, you actually get a much clearer and often much calmer picture of what is really happening on the global stage.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we are bringing you an exclusive Asia situation report.
We are analyzing the strategic landscape leading up to mid-August 2026.
We'll be looking at the facts, identifying what key decision makers are actually doing, and forecasting the events you need to watch for.
Right, and we will be moving through four key arenas today. That's China and Taiwan, Southeast Asia, North Korea, and South Asia.
And our goal here is to impartially present the different perspectives and courses of action completely without bias and, most importantly, without generating unnecessary fear.
Absolutely. Just the facts.
Now, to do that, we have an incredible tool driving our analysis today. This deep dive is brought to you by ProWave AI, and the intelligence we are unpacking is generated directly by Stylo News.
Which is such a fascinating platform.
It really is. Stylo News is an AI-powered news application, and here is what makes this so unique for you listening right now. It is the consumer version of Stylo Intel Ops.
Right, and Stylo Intel Ops is a software platform designed specifically for enterprise operations across government, military, and business sectors.
Yeah, so you're basically getting access to the exact kind of analytical framework designed to support global decision makers.
It allows us to synthesize, massive amounts of reporting, traditional news sources, and sentiment from social media. It finds the broad, common viewpoints and the actual verifiable actions on the ground.
It's incredibly powerful. So let's jump right into the data.
Let's do it.
We are going to start with a question that always seems to dominate the conversation. Is China preparing for an imminent, full-scale attack on Taiwan?
It's the big question.
It is. So, based on the intelligence in the past 2 weeks, what are the facts actually telling us?
Well, the intelligence estimates point to a much lower temperature than the headlines suggest.
Okay.
A near-term, full-scale amphibious invasion of Taiwan is highly unlikely. We're looking at a medium confidence assessment here, and the reasoning is grounded heavily in what we are not seeing.
Right. But I have to push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
If China isn't planning an invasion, why are China's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, jets constantly crossing the median line in the Taiwan Strait?
Well,
Why are they conducting drills that encircle the island? Because from the outside, that looks exactly like preparation for an attack, doesn't it?
it looked like preparation, yeah, but it lacks the necessary logistical footprint of an actual imminent invasion. Well, you have to remember, an amphibious assault across 100 miles of ocean is arguably the most complex military operation possible.
Right.
You just cannot hide the buildup. If an invasion were weeks or months away, satellite imagery would show mass amphibious loading at ports in coastal provinces like Fujian.
So we'd see the physical ships loading up.
Exactly. We would see large-scale logistics mobilization, massive reserve call-ups, the state requisitioning civilian roll-on, roll-off ferries, and...
Wait, civilian
Yeah,
flight?
they would need commercial shipping to move enough troops. And we'd also see unusual blood supply activity at regional hospitals.
Wow, blood supplies. I wouldn't have even thought of that.
It's a key indicator. But the point is, we are seeing none of those indicators right now.
Okay, so the median line crossings and the encircling drills, what is the mechanism behind that strategy, if not an immediate attack?
It is the essence of coercive gray zone tactics.
Gray zone.
Right. These are deliberate actions designed to stay just below the threshold of open, conventional warfare.
So like a boa constrictor slowly tightening its grip to test weaknesses, rather than a tiger going for a sudden pounce.
That's a perfect analogy, actually. By constantly crossing the median line and maintaining a heavy naval presence, Beijing is normalizing their presence in areas they previously stayed out of.
Normalizing the abnormal.
Exactly. They are exhausting Taiwan's military by forcing them to constantly scramble jets in response. Over time, it alters the status quo without firing a single shot. They're testing response times and essentially practicing for a potential future quarantine or blockade.
So how does Taiwan counter a strategy like that? Because looking at the sources on their recent Hong Kong defense exercises, they seem heavily focused on internal resilience.
They are. Taiwan is acutely aware that they cannot match China ship for ship or jet for jet.
Right.
Instead, they are investing in what's called a porcupine defense.
Make yourself hard to swallow.
Exactly. The idea is to make the island so difficult, painful, and costly to digest that it deters an adversary from trying to swallow it in the first place.
And the details of these exercises are fascinating.
You really are.
They aren't just practicing rappelling a beach landing. They are running mobile internet throttling drills.
Yeah.
They're practicing how to maintain secure communications if undersea cables are severed, relying on satellite networks and decentralized mesh communication.
Which is crucial.
And they are running CBRN, that's chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear decontamination drills.
Right, and they're also practicing highway aircraft takeoffs, operating under the assumption that their primary air bases would be cratered in the first wave of a conflict.
It is a profound shift in military doctrine, really.
It is. By hardening their civilian infrastructure, dispersing their military assets, and deploying asymmetric weapons like drone swarms, Taiwan is directly addressing those gray zone blockade tactics.
They are demonstrating that a blockade would not lead to a swift capitulation.
Exactly.
But if an invasion isn't the plan right now, what specific triggers is Beijing waiting for that could suddenly change their calculus? Like, what shifts this from a gray zone standoff into an actual kinetic conflict?
The intelligence suggests Beijing retains both the intent and the capability to use force over the long term.
Okay.
The specific triggers that could shift their preference from coercion to an immediate invasion would likely be formal political moves toward independence by Taiwan,
That makes sense.
or major changes in foreign military basing on the island. Or, and this is key, a severe global crisis that drastically distracts the United States and depletes its military resources, leaving Washington unable to respond effectively.
And that concept of distracting the United States brings us perfectly to our next arena.
Right.
Because we are seeing a very similar gray zone playbook moving south into the broader maritime theater of the South China Sea and Southeast Asia.
We are, yeah. The tactics adapt to the geography, though. While Taiwan faces the threat of a blockade, the flashpoints in the South China Sea, primarily around Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal, are about cumulative maritime pressure.
So China is utilizing its Coast Guard and heavily armed maritime militia to assert its territorial claims.
Exactly.
And the mechanism there is deniability, right?
Precisely.
By using the Coast Guard and fishing militias instead of gray-hulled Navy destroyers, it makes it incredibly difficult for countries like the Philippines to invoke mutual defense treaties.
Right, because it's technically law enforcement or civilian vessels. It is dangerous intercepts, water cannons, and harassment of resupply missions.
But the Philippines is actively pushing back now.
They are, through both legal and military channels. Diplomatically, Manila recently submitted updated maritime charts to the United Nations to formally assert their extended continental shelf claims.
Okay.
But the more immediate shift is their acquisition of BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles from India.
And why is a supersonic cruise missile such a game changer for a country made up of thousands of islands?
It fundamentally changes the math of deterrence by denial. The BrahMos missile travels at roughly 3 times the speed of sound, making it exceptionally difficult for naval air defense systems to intercept.
Oh, okay.
By placing these mobile batteries on their coastlines, the Philippines can effectively project a threat bubble hundreds of miles out into the ocean.
So it means a foreign Coast Guard cutter or militia vessel can no longer operate with impunity in those waters.
Exactly, because the cost of a miscalculation suddenly involves losing a ship.
This aligns heavily with recent messaging from the U.S. Pentagon, urging Asian allies to boost their own defense investments and capabilities.
It does.
But I have to ask, if the Pentagon is telling allies they need to start buying their own high-end missiles and stepping up their own defense spending, is Washington quietly signaling a step back from the region? Or are they just trying to redistribute the weight of the shield?
It is a redistribution of responsibility, not an abandonment. The United States is signaling a transition from acting as a unilateral protectorate to building a network of highly capable partnerships. Washington wants its allies to be able to absorb the initial shock of any conflict.
The reactions across the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the ASEAN bloc, are incredibly varied, though.
Very much so.
You have the Philippines and Japan taking distinctly more militarized stances, actively preparing for potential maritime conflict. But then you look at Indonesia.
Right.
They recently conducted joint naval drills with China just east of Taiwan. How does Indonesia manage to pull that off without alienating the U.S. or its neighbors?
Well, Indonesia benefits from its sheer size, its geographic position controlling vital shipping lanes, and its massive economy.
Right.
They are maintaining a strictly non-aligned stance. By engaging professionally with China's military, even in sensitive waters, Jakarta is attempting to balance the major powers.
Because their economy relies heavily on Chinese trade and investment, while their security apparatus maintains strong ties to the West.
Exactly. It is a calculated, pragmatic approach to avoid being forced into a binary us versus them block.
That makes total sense.
Right.
Now, while the major powers are playing this high-stakes maritime chess game, we cannot ignore the most pressing internal threat to the ASEAN bloc, which is the situation in Myanmar.
Right. The internal instability in Myanmar represents a severe humanitarian crisis and a massive security vacuum.
What are the facts on the ground there right now?
Recent independent reporting details a deeply troubling strategy by the ruling military junta. They are actively blocking crucial flood aid from reaching resistance-held villages in the Sagaing region.
So they are essentially using disaster relief, or the denial of it, as a weapon of war against their own population.
Exactly, all while continuing military airstrikes on those same flooded areas.
That's devastating.
It is, and the mechanism of internal fragmentation is often the most immediate threat to regional stability.
Because when a state collapses inward like Myanmar, it creates porous borders.
Right. It leads to refugee crises, the proliferation of illicit economies, and creates spaces where transnational crime syndicates can operate freely.
Which eventually spills over and affects the security of neighboring nations.
Exactly.
Let's shift our focus to an area where internal control is absolute, but external opportunism is spiking. Moving up to the Korean Peninsula, we are seeing a perfect example of how global conflicts in Europe are directly influencing the security architecture in Asia.
We are. The baseline assessment for the Korean Peninsula mirrors Taiwan, actually. An unprovoked, large-scale conventional attack on South Korea remains unlikely in the immediate term.
Okay, because we are not seeing the massive forward dispersal of artillery or the civilian evacuation measures in the north that would precede a full-scale war.
Correct.
I don't get it then.
Yeah.
If Kim Jong-un isn't preparing for a war at home, why is he sending up to 50,000 North Korean troops to support Russian efforts in Europe? And why is he providing advanced KN-23 and KN-24 ballistic missiles that are currently being fired into Ukraine? Doesn't sending your troops and your best weapons thousands of miles away leave your own borders vulnerable?
It is not a drain on his resources. It is a laboratory.
A laboratory.
Yes. North Korea is utilizing the battlefields of Ukraine as a live-fire testing ground for its own arsenal.
Wait, breaking that down? These are solid-fueled, highly maneuverable ballistic missiles. North Korea has test-fired them into the ocean for years, but they have never known if they could actually evade a U.S. Patriot missile battery.
Until now.
Wow.
By supplying Russia, Pyongyang gains invaluable real-world technical data on how its weapons perform against modern Western air defense systems.
They can analyze the telemetry, see what gets intercepted, and refine their guidance systems.
Exactly. Furthermore, they are receiving crucial financial support, food, and likely advanced military technology transfers from Moscow.
Like what kind of technology?
Perhaps regarding satellite technology or nuclear submarine designs, things that they could not acquire anywhere else due to international sanctions.
So they're effectively getting paid and getting advanced tech to test their weapons in real combat.
It's a massive strategic win for them, and perhaps most strategically, this partnership distracts the West.
Right.
It forces the United States and Europe to expend massive amounts of military aid and attention on Ukraine. So while a full-scale war on the peninsula is unlikely, this emboldened posture, backed by a major power like Russia, significantly raises the risk of calibrated, opportunistic provocations by North Korea.
And we have a very clear trigger for those provocations coming up, don't we?
We do.
The United States and South Korea are scheduled to hold their major annual joint military exercise, Ulchi Freedom Shield, from August 17th to the 27th.
Right. North Korea historically uses these joint exercises as a justification for its own coercive signaling. In the past few days, we have already seen them launch a ballistic missile from Wonsan toward the East Sea.
Concurrently, their state media has significantly escalated its hostile rhetoric.
Yes, specifically targeting Japan's recent military expansion and the growing trilateral security cooperation between Tokyo, Washington, and Seoul.
It is the gray zone applied to the peninsula. Everyone is posturing, testing the limits of new alliances, but carefully trying to avoid crossing the line into a conventional war.
Which brings us to our final region, South Asia.
Right.
We are seeing shifting international alliances raise the temperature between historical rivals in a very similar manner, relying on external backing to alter the local balance of power.
Let's talk about the Mecca Pact.
Yes.
This is a brand new tripartite defense agreement between Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey.
It's a significant development.
When I look at this, instead of moving pieces on a chessboard, it feels like a high-risk corporate merger. Pakistan just brought Saudi Arabia and Turkey onto its board of directors.
Yeah.
How does gaining those powerful political board seats change Pakistan's behavior on the ground regarding India?
The corporate merger analogy is highly applicable here. From an intelligence perspective, the pact itself does not mean an imminent conventional war between India and Pakistan.
Right.
The risk of major interstate war remains below the threshold of imminent conflict. Pakistan is framing this as a defensive, politically inclusive agreement.
But gaining that kind of backing shifts their risk tolerance, doesn't it?
Drastically.
Right.
For Islamabad, having the explicit political and potentially military backing of two major Islamic nations provides a strategic safety net.
It emboldens them.
Yes. And from New Delhi's perspective, this pact increases genuine concerns of strategic encirclement. India now has to consider how Turkey or Saudi Arabia might react to a regional crisis, complicating India's diplomatic and military options.
So the immediate threat of tanks rolling across the border is low, but this influx of external political capital elevates the risk of subconventional clashes.
Exactly.
And we are already seeing that localized fallout, right?
We are. The border environment remains highly volatile. There has been recent unrest, including the Border Security Force, the BSF, shooting a suspected Pakistani intruder near the Amritsar sector.
And these localized incidents carry a much higher risk of escalation when the broader diplomatic environment is strained.
Absolutely.
And it isn't just military posturing, it spills over into cultural and diplomatic arenas too.
It does.
Look at the scheduled white ball cricket series between India and Bangladesh. It is currently facing massive uncertainty.
Right.
And this isn't a scheduling conflict. It is tied directly to heightened security concerns following the recent arrest of Pakistani Inter-Services Intelligence, or ISI, agents near the India-Bangladesh border in West Bengal.
It demonstrates exactly how interconnected these security issues are. An intelligence arrest in West Bengal threatens a major international sporting event, which in turn fuels the public narrative of instability, distrust, and proxy conflict.
It is another manifestation of the gray zone.
Yes.
Where nations actively avoid direct conventional war, but engage in constant low-level provocations to keep their adversaries off balance.
That's exactly right.
Stepping back to look at the big picture synthesis of this Asia Situation Report. Whether we are analyzing the blockade rehearsals in the Taiwan Strait, the maritime militias in the South China Sea, the proxy missile testing by North Korea, or the shifting alliance structures in the Himalayas, the overarching theme is undeniable.
It is.
Major powers are relying entirely on gray zone tactics, proxy support, and strategic posturing.
The defining characteristic of global geopolitics in August 2026 is that nations are constantly testing the boundaries of their rivals.
Right.
They are applying incremental pressure to alter the status quo while meticulously calculating their moves to avoid the catastrophic costs of a direct conventional war.
And to navigate a world this complex, you need intelligence you can trust, devoid of the spin. That is why we are so thrilled to partner with Stylo News. Stylo News is available as both a mobile and computer app. It allows you, the listener, to download and customize your own personal intelligence-style briefs.
It pulls from hundreds of traditional news sources and X, synthesizing the data to give you the clear, unbiased picture we presented today.
It bridges the gap between enterprise-level intelligence and consumer news, empowering the individual to see the patterns, understand the mechanisms, and stay genuinely informed on global events.
It really is an incredible tool.
You can go to www.stylonews.com right now to subscribe to Stylo News and get AI-powered news on demand. It is an absolute game changer.
We want to thank you for spending your time with us today. Analyzing these structural realities is critical, and your curiosity is what drives this deep dive.
Please reach out and request topics for future deep dives, and be sure to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms. We always love hearing what you want to explore next.
And before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final thought to ponder based on today's intelligence.
We talked about how every major power in Asia is relying on this delicate gray zone balancing act, pushing the limits without crossing the line.
Right.
But consider this. With the United States currently facing deeply strained munitions stockpiles due to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and the massive expenditure of artillery and air defenses in Ukraine, how long can this global staring contest in Asia hold before a single miscalculation tips the scales?
When the margins for error are this thin, it is the defining question of our current era.
Something to mull over. Until next time, stay curious.